आपने उस पे?
अरे
कब बात की आपने उस पे?
आप बात करो ना।
बात करी आपने कभी उस पे?
अभी जाओ अभी।
क्या?
Don't need to engage with them.
साथियों, ठीक है, इन्हें पोस्टर्स लेके खड़े रहने दीजिए। हम अपना कार्यक्रम, हम अपना डिस्कशन वापस से शुरू करेंगे। आप बिल्कुल खड़े रहिए अपने पोस्टर्स को लेके, हमें कोई दिक्कत नहीं है। आप वायलेंस मत करिए, आप डिस्टर्बेंस मत करिए, आप खड़े रहिए, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है। आप सुनिए।
भाई साहब सुनिए, भाई हमें तो बोलने दो भाई, मेरे ठीक है ना। आप खड़े रहे, आप इनका फोटो लो यार, फोटो लो अच्छा से।
भाई खड़े हो, आप भी सुन लीजिए। आप भी डिस्कशन में इसी बहाने को सीख जाएंगे, इसी बहाने को सीख जाएंगे।
खड़े रहिए, अपने पोस्टर लेके डिसेंट जाहिर करिए, चिल्लाइए मत, उनको रोकिए। चिल्लाइए, यहाँ पे हम विरोध करने आए हैं। आप खड़े रहिए, विरोध कर रहे हैं।
आप सुन लीजिए, आप सुन लीजिए। मैं भी यहाँ का छात्र रहा हूँ, तो इसलिए आप ये ना कहिए, आप मेरे बात भी सुनिए। मैं छात्र के हिसाब से कह रहा हूँ, ठीक है। सो ये जो अभी जो स्ट्रगल, इंडिजिनस पीपल स्ट्रगल है, उसके अंदर आप समझिए कॉन्ट्रडिक्शंस भी है। ये कॉन्ट्रडिक्शन अलाउ करता है कैपिटल को, इंडिजिनस पीपल्स मूवमेंट को इनकॉर्पोरेट और कोऑप्ट करने का। ये जो इस प्रोसेस का जो एक प्रक्रिया का शुरुआत है, हम देख रहे हैं। बट एक तरफा ना देखिए इसको। ये किताब का ये लेसन है कि इसको एक तरफा कभी ना देखें। आप वो जानते हैं ये होमोजेनस नहीं है, एलिट्स होते हैं, बट उसका मतलब नहीं कि कम्युनिटी का अपना कोई आइडेंटिटी नहीं है, कम्युनिटी को कैसे बढ़ नहीं सकता है, ठीक है। So the main political conclusions that one can draw from there is how even contradictory, a framework apparently contradictory, and he shows that it is continuous, how that framework allows for the entry of capital. So that today the struggle between Adani, Ambani, Vedanta and all the big mine owners, including public sector mines, throughout these regions is very, very crucial. It's absolutely crucial. The struggle is at that level. Now, by showing, I'm so sorry that that he was not there to do a much greater research what happens in the post 50s, 60s, 70s in a detailed manner, which would have shown you the lineages, the non-linear lineage of the present political struggle throughout, which is happening throughout India and throughout. And finally, I would like to end my thing by appealing to Umar in some sense, and through representing you, आपको भी, हाँ, कि नहीं ये बहुत बढ़िया है, ये दिस इज मैं ठीक है आप स्वयं सिद्ध है। अच्छा ठीक है, मैं अपने आप तरफ से। अच्छा ए भाई बदतमीज देखिए, एक छात्र, ये गद्दार कैसे हो गया? मैंने क्या गद्दारी किया भाई? ओके अच्छा ठीक है। I am reading this poem out, a part of the poem. It's a 19th century poem by Charles Baudelaire. आप हमें अछूत बोलिए, गद्दार बोलिए, जो भी बोलिए, हम उसी नाम को लेके उल्टा करेंगे। आपको नहीं, आप नहीं है, आप है astonishing प्लीज प्लीज ओके भाई भाई मैं तुम्हारी गाना सुनूंगा तो हम गाना सुनेंगे एस्टोनिशिंग वॉयेजेस अरे भाई सुन ले यार एस्टोनिशिंग वॉयेजेस आई एम टीचिंग हियर सिट डाउन एस्टोनिशिंग वॉयेजेस सिट डाउन आई एम ए टीचर सिट डाउन What splendid stories we read in your eyes as deep as the seas. This is to Umar. Shows the chest of your rich memories. Those marvelous jewels made of ether and stars. Rohit Bemula yaad hai? Made of ether and stars. We wish to voyage without steam and without sails, to brighten the ennui of our prisons. Umar is in the prison. He is not in the prison. We are in the prison. To brighten the ennui of our prison. Make your memories framed in the horizons pass across our minds, stretched like canvases. Tell us, Umar, what you have seen. This. So, well, what I'm going to speak is partly academic about what Umar is doing, but also I want to point out what political constitution of this book is, how this book was created politically, and what political conclusions have been drawn from that, can be drawn, because in the book not everything can be drawn. So I would like to begin first by telling you how I am connected to Umar Khalid. Not only here, not only because I'm a historian, but the fact is that I did my training in history here, from the same center in which Umar worked. Umar worked at the Center for Historical Studies. I studied here. I did my PhD from here, and I did my PhD on the same region that Umar is studied. That is Jharkhand. I did my PhD on the economic history of Jharkhand, agrarian economic history, and he takes on a very important part of Jharkhand, which is Kolhan, South Singhbhum. So that's the second connection. Third is that I was, as it happened, I was the thesis examiner for Umar Khalid. So I read the thesis and wrote a report on it, and also did interview with him. That's the only time actually I could meet, because within a short period he was, this was in 2019 towards the end, and then by 2020 he was in jail in September. So I haven't had the chance to see him again and meet him again. I only read him whenever possible. But also it's the fact that Umar did field work apart from archival work, which I did also in the region. I also grew up in that region, exactly the region that he studied. I grew up in the region. So I feel not only an affinity, a kind of a comradeship with his work. Apart from an academic affinity, I feel much more. Sorry.
Can I just take the mic for 1 minute?
Yeah.
साथियों, जो भी लोग पीछे खड़े हैं उनसे एक बार गुजारिश करूंगी कि आगे जगह है तो आप लोग थोड़ा सा आगे आ जाइए, तो आवाज भी सब तक पहुंच पाएगी, सब बेहतर तरीके से सुन पाएंगे. यहाँ पर भी आप नीचे आके बैठ सकते हैं, तो प्लीज थोड़ा सा आगे सब मूव कर लीजिए.
Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is, apart from my affinity and political closeness to his to the history writing, the kind of history writing he has done, I want to talk a little bit about what constitutes the book. You know, structurally, what is the book, or what. You have a very wonderful introduction by Ram Guha, and also a wonderful epilogue by Nandini Sundar. You must read the book, and you can see what both of them are mentioning about the beautiful, lucid style, narrative style of Umar Khalid. His writing is so clear in many ways, but this clarity is lucidity and clarity is important, because it actually it's a readable book on a very, very arcane subject, you know, very, very readable book. So I would like you to all to get this book and read it. Okay. The first point I want to see already, she has already mentioned it already. I would like to emphasize that what he has done in this book is to look at this region within Jharkhand now, which is part of basically southern Singhbhum, which is called the Kolhan region, where the Ho people largely reside. Hos are a Agnate tribe similar to Munda anyway. The language is also similar to Mundas, and they were a powerful and pretty much unsubdued tribe till the British came in. And subdued them and pacified them. The word they used was pacified them and tried to settle them. And that is the story. And they tried to settle them through a particular administrative stratagem, which was that of creating an exceptional structure of governance there, in which regular administrative functions would not be there. It was a government estate. That means the government owned that whole land, or at least tend to be the superior landlord. And then they introduced a system of governance through the headmen and clan leaders as a form of, and this was called an administrative exception or an indirect form of indirect rule. But in truth, it was very strongly interfered by the government. Government continuously created this exception in order to also subvert it continuously and simultaneously also incorporate part of the community into the structure. Now that is the key point of his argument, to show why this administrative exceptionalism was used strategically both by the government, but also by the community itself. Okay, sorry. Okay, so now, so what I would like to point out is in the structure of the book, and I'm going to be academic in this way here. The book is marked by a constant tension, a very productive tension. The tension is between two often opposing forces. And this opposing forces you can see happening within the structure of the book, in the historiography that he discusses, and also in his own mind. This contradiction has many manifestations. One important manifestation is in the form of difference between class and community. How communities are being differentiated through processes of class formation. That's a central point. That one big tension is between class formation and community, persistence of community and degradation of community. This whole dynamic of tension between class and community is one major thing. The second major contradictions, or let's say structural contradiction in the system which is there, is in between the colonial state itself. Beautifully shown in his book is the tension between exceptionalism and a kind of a integrationism. Let's call it these two, exceptionalism and integrationism. How they were, colonial government often never spoke with one voice. They often had two voices, and this tendency towards exceptionalism, now this should be protected, and other thing was they should be integrated, and the same laws should. This is very much a part of the tension. The third level at which this tension works is in the historiography itself. Brilliantly shown is not only the colonial historiographers or colonial historiography, which is the origin of history writing of this region, but also in colonial anthropology. And showing in history and anthropology the historiography of that, and especially tracking the shifts which took place both within the colonial ethnography as well as by Indian nationalist ethnography. And there was no single voice there. There was a tension continuously between a colonial project, we know that anthropology is a colonial science, colonial project, and a nationalist counter to it. But this also itself was not static. These tensions that I'm talking about, they don't remain the same. That's the beauty of this, the narrative style of this book, is to show how the tensions, all these structural tensions, move through the book. through time. And that's an important way in which the book is structured. So what I would call that the method he adopts is purely a dialectical one. A dialectical one where you use the tension not to totally expose something. That's crude empiricism. Which say, for everything you say, there will always be a counter example. That's not the method. The method is to use those tension which appears by pushing them together and holding that tension throughout the book, throughout your thinking. As I said, it is this which is in the mind of, as I can read, in the mind of Umar Khalid. He maintains this tension, and that allows him sometimes to draw, or sometimes doesn't draw, completely brilliant political conclusions. If it was merely to, as Ram has said, as merely to subvert the linear narrative or homogeneous narrative, it would not have been very important. I would still think it had already been done by other people, and he shows it, how other people have thought already about the emergence of an elite class within the community. That itself was not the main thing. It was to use this continuously to provide a narrative framework, a framework which allows you now to understand what happens when the so-called idyllic homogeneous community is now, not only is that the state is something above it, state is very much a part of creation of this community. It continuously produces this community in some sense, in its discourse and in its practice. Now this framework allows one to understand how big capital enters this. And today the political struggle is between the community use of resources, who owns the resources and who is being marginalized. Now that, to draw that conclusion, we have to say, look, this framework already existed of exceptionalism and of integration, which allows a loophole or a leeway for capital to enter. And today, the struggle throughout Adivasi lands from Koraput to Chhattisgarh to is clearly one between resource extraction and what will happen to these people. What relationship can they have with this? Now there lies a problem. There lies a problem, and that problem is not coming from, because this framework which says that, well, you are all protected to an extent, you are protected, it's important, but it also allows for the protected to emerge as elites and who can carry out certain negotiations for bringing them in. Now this is beautifully shown in the book earlier, how the so-called dikus, the outsiders, are continually being settled through first a process of agrarian expansion, but much later, by the end of 19th century, through emergence of this large mining, and because Sengupta is a big, massive area of iron ore and manganese and copper and uranium. This is, Sengupta is a rich mineral, and the struggle today, the struggle in whatever you can call the anti-Maoist green operation, green hunt, all these which began there was merely to provide the basis for taking whatever rights or whatever community hold they had. Now this, the problem, what I want to say, the problem lies in this. In 2006, you had forest rights. Before that, there was also the PESA, which was again a very interesting history by which Gram Sabhas are given rights to, to decide about how the resources. But this Gram Sabha institution, Umar Khalid shows so well, had already been kind of subverted earlier, being used precisely this method to bring in outsiders. Now this outsiders being brought together, not just now have created, what he shows is this conflict is not just between outside ethnic conflict, that it takes the name of ethnicity is all right, but it is a large scale conflict which emerges now between capital and the whole community. Now this is an important point to say, which I want to get back to, is that by giving individual private property rights under FRA Forest Rights Act actually provides the basis on which those rights can be sold and bought. Contradictorily, you provide them rights, but those rights can be bought and sold. Those rights, including community rights, can be utilized by manufacturing consent and can be used precisely to enter these areas. This happens in all the time in Vedanta's thing in Koraput, it's happening in Chhattisgarh now with Adani's entering. This is so clear. But what is so important about this book is how it shows this penetration, the possibility of penetration.